I designed and manufactured the tents and the bags that fit in and the mattresses and the pillows and everything. And then the four of us left our lives in Johannesburg and went up to start giving travelers the most incredible experience on this really, really beautiful island. I feel very blessed to have chosen this part of the world. Driving around anywhere, there's just beauty and magic and mountains and ocean around every corner. So I would say that that's really what feeds my soul. I love Africa. There's a spirit and there's something very special here than other continents. And I've come to appreciate, because I travel a lot through doing expos around the world.
Welcome to your favorite podcast, 1000 African Voices, broadcasting from an African perspective. 1000 African Voices is a program aimed at breaking down the boundaries that divide us as a continent, the boundaries that divide our beautiful people. You can also find the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast by searching for 1000 African Voices. Our website address is 1000africanvoices.com. We are calling this series Africa's Future Reimagined. Your host is Avurengwi. Welcome.
1000 African Voices.
Hello, African. Welcome to yet another episode of 1000 African Voices, where we bring you the most interesting and influential people from across the continent. And today we're joined by Samantha Skyring, who will shortly introduce herself to our listeners. Hi, Samantha.
Hi, so good to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
No, welcome to the show. I must say, I really love your last name, Skyring. First time I'm coming across that. Where are the Skyrings from?
So actually, it's my mum's maiden name, but she gifted me the name in my as part of my birth name. So it's originally Scandinavian. It was Skyring. And after the love of my life and my childhood sweetheart and I got married and then we separated, I didn't want to keep his name and I couldn't go back to my maiden name because so much had happened and I wasn't the same young girl as I was. and so I dropped both and I just became Samantha Lee Skyring. And I do love it too. Thank you.
Is it Samantha Lee Skyring? Is that the full name?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
So it's even more beautiful than I thought. All right, Samantha, let's maybe then go through introductions. Who are you and what are you about? Just so that our listeners can get a sense of our guest.
Who am I? That's a big question. How much time do I have? I'm definitely an adventurer of life and have lived many lives in this life. Yeah, an entrepreneur from very young. I think I was gifted at 13 when my parents had a financial crash. And so I started working and became independent. And I think that's been a big part of who I am. And then just exploring, I thank predominantly my dad, obviously both my parents, but they gifted me a belief in myself. They just knew I could. And I don't know if it was ever spoken. I think it was an unspoken knowing from them. And so I grew up believing in myself. And when different opportunities arose, I never doubted that I could or should I, or I just jumped at the opportunity and dived headfirst and then looked back and went, oh, really? So I really have experienced many varying, and I can briefly share them. So my first opportunity was I did interior refurbishing of private jets and aircrafts. And then I left to go live on the beaches of Lake Malawi, and I started a very beautiful kayaking company on an uninhabited island, and then started a beach bar restaurant, which was a lot of fun. And then I did some production managing, and then I had a very beautiful vision, actually, and ended up workshopping 30,000 children across the country, drumming, facilitated drumming. The caption was transformation through celebration. So it was taking drumming back into rural communities and training students from high schools and leaving them with drums. And then I discovered this beautiful salt and wanted to share it with fellow South Africans because it was being exported and wasn't being offered in the country. And so I jumped at the opportunity.
There's so much to explore. I mean, you spoke a bit about Malawi. As I was preparing for the show, the one thing that stood out was the island that you discovered. I'm like, how does someone discover an island? So maybe let's go through that process. Maybe just look us how you got to that point.
So some friends and my husband and I at the time decided to kayak on Lake Malawi as a holiday. And there was this beautiful island that we came across 10 kilometers off Chembe village, or not quite Monkey Bay, but Chembe village, which is quite a tourist area on Lake Malawi, on the southern part of Lake Malawi. And we came across this island that was just exquisite. And we all had jobs and we all just decided, wow, imagine. And so we went back to Johannesburg and found another friend who had the finances and went across to Germany and bought the kayaks. And I was doing the interior refurbishing of aircraft at the time. So I designed and manufactured the tents and the bags that fit in and the mattresses and the pillows and everything. And then the four of us left our lives in Johannesburg and went up to start giving travelers the most incredible experience on this really, really beautiful island. Yeah, very special time.
You seem to have an adventurous spirit, but maybe before we come to that point, even though this is an audio recording, at this point, I'm pretty sure that the listeners can tell that you exude this very positive energy. So I have the luxury and pleasure of right now looking at you smiling as you're going through your profile. So in the description of who you are, I would expect that to feature. Where does all this positive energy come from? I don't know if it's something that you've reflected on, but I'm getting a lot of this positive energy and I want some of that as well.
Awesome. Sure. I would say, I guess spirit and God. I think I have a beautiful relationship with the divine, really. And I would say my church is faith and gratitude. I live in, especially when I'm in a really, really good space, which I am currently. I think there've been so many blessings from Corona, and living in a state of gratitude for the beauty that we're surrounded by and the gifts of life and the gifts of people and even this opportunity. I feel like I'm a facilitator of Oryx Desert Salt. And so, I think that brings me lots of joy. And living in Cape Town, I feel very blessed to have chosen this part of the world. Driving around anywhere, there's just beauty and magic and mountains and ocean, around every corner. So I would say that that's really what feeds my soul. And it's what keeps me alive and keeps me joyful.
Yeah. No, I had to mention it, to be honest. It's I don't even need to be looking at you to get that sense. And again, I'm pretty sure that is what the listeners are experiencing. Let's talk a bit about salt. So You are the founder and CEO of Oryx Desert Salt. How did you get into that? It's like, personally, I've never really thought about salt from that perspective, where I go like, maybe I should pursue this as an option. What led you into the salt and maybe this desert salt?
Yeah, so a friend, colleague was selling the salt internationally and felt that the market in South Africa was too small to put time, energy, and effort into it. And I was coming out of 7 years of doing the drumming project called 20,000 Drums. We had kind of hit our financial crash, so there wasn't any financial corporate sponsorship for emotional, spiritual transformation and upliftment. And I'd also recently had my son, so my life had changed. And I just thought it would be beautiful to be able to offer this amazing salt, which comes from a very, very special place up in the Kalahari. So there's a 50 square meter salt pan, so 10 kilometers long by 5 kilometers wide. And it is 250 kilometers north of Uppington. And they discovered underground a 55 million ton salt lake that's fed by underground streams. So it's renewable and sustainable. And we pump it up, we sun dry it, and we harvest it and bottle it and offer it. So it's got all the minerals and trace elements that salt is supposed to have, and we add nothing in it. And when we pump up the salt, this 100% salt water in the Kalahari, it crystallizes in 4 weeks. And that salt water has not been touched by human hands, which, on the planet nowadays is quite a rare phenomenon. It's absolutely pure in every way. And so now it was being sent overseas, but not being made available to us, South Africans. And that doesn't really feel okay to me. It's like our best fruit that gets exported, and we get left with the C grade. And so I started, and the brand, 7 years before, I'd had an awesome opportunity to travel Namibia for 5 months. And the only place we weren't able to get to was the Skeleton Coast, because one had to have a permit. And so my partner and I ended up walking 120 kilometers, 7 days through the Namibia Desert along the Kunene River. And I had close encounters with the Oryx. And so 7 years later, when I wanted to brand the salt, this beautiful masked creature, this regal animal from the desert, was my inspiration for the brand.
Yeah, I must say that the story behind that, I found it quite inspiring. I think if I recall, there was a paragraph or a sentence that talked about the oryx being an animal that can go for like a year plus without any water, but that it cannot go for a month without salt. I thought, Samantha is really, really good at storytelling, because I want some of that Oryx salt.
So in fact, I discovered that there are some Oryx that can go their entire lives without drinking water, but they have to lick salt. And the reason they're able to do that is because their hair is hygroscopic. It absorbs the moisture and the dew from the air at nighttime in the desert. And so they absorb it directly into their bodies. And all the succulents and vegetation also swell and absorb the moisture at night. So while they're eating, they're also hydrating. So a really perfect symbol for the beautiful salt. It's so essential for their survival in the desert. And salt is so essential for our survival. We are 70% saline solution, and we really do need to eat an unrefined, unprocessed salt for our health.
And in terms of what differentiates your product from any other type of salt, and again, as I was preparing, I thought, how do I tell, or how can I tell that this is Samantha's salt versus someone else's? Can you tell the difference?
Actually, you can. So interestingly, if you were to grind Oryx salt onto the palm of your hand and have a taste, and then you were to grind any other sea salt on your hand and you had a taste, the desert salt just really seems to have a very beautiful taste profile, it's a very gentle, and some chefs call it a sweet salt. It's very full and very rounded. And for some reason, sea salt seems to be bitter and sharp. So yeah, it actually tastes different.
And where can we find some of your products?
So luckily, it's in most Pick n Pays and in about 117 Woolworths, some Spars, a few Dis-Chems, and then we have these really sweet, very cute, but very convenient little travel shakers that are available in Cape Union Mart. And they're great for your lunchbox, for your picnic, for your putt course, for when you're hiking or biking or even going to the gym and you've got your boiled egg and then you have your little baby shaker to use.
I absolutely love how you've thought of everything. On my way to gym with Oryx salt, just in case I may need to season my boiled egg.
Well, the thing is, once you start using Oryx, you will get hooked. So I have to make it easy for you to, and because I know I'm a salt snob, I really don't want to use anything else but this very pure, unrefined, mineral-rich salt. And so I needed to make it easy for everyone else to be salt snobs too and to take your Oryx salt wherever you go.
All right. At this point, at least I'll speak for myself. I'm thinking great energy, amazing smile. The vibe is really just positive. This success story of how someone turned desert salt into a business. But like many stories, I will think, Samantha, that before you got to this point, there must have been some challenges that you encountered on your journey. If you don't mind, just maybe sharing some of the challenges that you've had to go through before you got to sort of where you are now.
Overall, I often feel that when one looks back in one's life, there's sometimes crises that happen that at the time seem like a crisis, but mostly in retrospect, they're just crossroads in our journey and really have been part of, my personal growth, my life experience. So, I mean, certainly challenges, but I usually manage to see challenges as opportunities, embrace them to a degree rather than fear them or get trapped by them. So, in fact, even in the salt journey, I had started selling the salt and then the person I was buying from decided to give away the agency to somebody else who had been in the industry for 20 years and was in food products and so on. And so they, placed their bets on him and not myself because I hadn't been in food. I hadn't worked with a product. I came out of a very different industry. And I was like, no, that's not okay. I really want to say, I am going to sell the salt. How are we going to resolve this? So he said, okay, well, why don't you rebrand it? And that was an incredible gift to the brand to then have come up with the Oryx Desert Salt. So I think it's just allowing and trusting that, things happen. They really do happen for a reason. And to just see how it turns out. Now, I think the positive attitude and being quite resilient and having a strong intention in what it is that you want and a vision for your life and a dream. The dreams don't always turn out how one would like them to, but still there's so many gifts and so much magic and so much experience and so on along the way.
I really absolutely love that response, sort of turning or looking at challenges as opportunities, or at least finding opportunities within that. Because I think for most of us, when you experience challenges, that's when the wheels come off. So if one develops or nurtures this ability to turn that into opportunities, then you can imagine how much more you can achieve. So I really, really love that. Let's talk a bit about your journey, or you and Africa, the relationship that you have, having been to Namibia, Malawi. There must be something within you that wants to explore the African continent. Is that a fair statement to make, that you have an adventurous, at least you seem to have an adventurous spirit that allows you or pushes you to want to travel?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, I would say I'm definitely an African queen. I'm a salt queen. And I love Africa. There's a spirit, and there's something very special here than other continents. And I've come to appreciate, because I travel a lot through doing expos around the world. And I've really come to appreciate European culture as well as the beauty. But there's something about Africa that is sometimes hard to put one's finger on, but there's an aliveness, and that there's a beauty here that I really resonate and love, and I cannot imagine myself being anywhere else. And yeah, there's so much of Africa still that I'm looking forward to discovering and adventuring. Life at the moment is a little bit, I had so many adventures pre-mum and pre-business, and now I'm a little bit older and, not necessarily responsible, but it's that time of my life to sort of, really focus. So there isn't so much travel at the moment, but I'm looking forward to that at a little later stage of my life. Yeah, the ultimate dream is to buy a big motorhome and to go on a cruise where there's no deadlines and no time limits, and just really stopping, enjoying, meeting people, experiencing places, and adventuring.
I suppose most of us have that dream. Like I've always wanted to maybe do that sort of a Cape to Cairo type adventure, where you're making stops, taking notes, and once you're done, putting it all down in a book and say, oh, now I can say I've done this Cape to Cairo type trip. So yeah, I do wish you well. I hope that you will be able to realize that in due course. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, I will. I'm looking forward to it too when the time is right.
How has the impact of the sort of COVID-19 environment been on your business? Has there been any? I would imagine that one way or the other, you've had to deal with this new world imposed on us by COVID-19.
So, I mean, from a business perspective, we lost about 70% of business over 6 months, or for 6 months. So only 30% of our business is retail. The other 70% is hospitality, restaurants, and tourism based. So we're managing, I think we've sort of climbed up to 40 to 50%. So from that perspective, we were definitely impacted. However, it also gave us an opportunity to reevaluate, to downscale a little bit. Unfortunately, we did need to let a few people go. There just wasn't work in the restaurant, industry. However, truthfully, a few weeks before Corona really, hit us full force, I had said to a couple of people, can't we please just put the whole world on pause so we can all just have a break and take a breather? So I was really feeling like life was too fast and, just so relentless in its constant, so many emails and so much to do. And it felt like we just all needed to stop and reflect and reevaluate, in our personal lives and just have some time out. And it's difficult to do when the business is still running. It was really that everyone needed to stop, and it did. And I know that I'm not the only one who had that wish. So it does feel like we've sort of had a moment of pause in order to take the business to a new space and into a new place, which is which is exciting for us. I've had my intentions and my goal and my wish is obviously to enter the US market. And I've recently had a presentation with a national US supermarket, and it feels like next year will be our year to be able to share this beautiful product, and we feel very ready for it.
Really enjoying your your perspective on life. So as much as a lot of people have had the misfortune of losing their lives, those that remain, I think it's up to us to maybe reflect on what COVID-19 has allowed us as humanity to do. And you are right that we're constantly moving from one meeting to the next, and you never really have time to stop, reflect. And it's always interesting that we're constantly running until you fall sick and suddenly you can afford to be out for 10 days. But unless you have a bug, you just can't afford it. You can't take leave. So I think your view, I'm finding what you said to be quite profound. And if only we could learn that and take it forward. But I know that humans being humans, we need another crisis to sort of stop and reflect on what's important in life. I just needed to share that.
Thank you. Well, hopefully we have taken some gems and nuggets and we do things differently and we don't wait for a crisis. But yeah, we're quite a stubborn species as well. It takes lots to make us change sometimes.
No, totally. And I must say, I do wish you well with your pursuit on sort of expanding to the American market. Compared to our population and their buying power, I think it will be great for your brand, obviously, to move into that space. Maybe Samantha, as we're about to wrap up, as a South African, we've talked a bit about Africa, but I'm curious to maybe get a sense of how you experience your own country, especially for those that have never been to South Africa and are not familiar with the country at all. How would you sell/explain life in SA or in Cape Town to someone who is not familiar at all with that?
There's exceptional beauty in South Africa and Africa. There's a feeling of wildness and a feeling of freedom here that I think everyone experiences and feels when they come visit South Africa and Africa, and they resonate with, and and it's something that they would love to experience again and definitely return to have that same experience.
Yeah, again, it's really a broad view on Africa. Obviously, as the host of 1000 African Voices, I'm heavily biased towards the continent. I really do think we live on the most beautiful, most dynamic continent anywhere. And I mean, you can move in 5 minutes from a rural setting to one of the top cities in the world within a 5-minute trip. I find that to be quite unique. So talking to someone like yourself, Samantha, who has, I suppose, managed to benefit from recognizing the natural resources that the continent has to offer, I think that's quite inspirational. But again, as we're about to wrap up, I don't know if you have any last words, be it of encouragement or any last words, just something to leave our listeners with so that they can continue to ruminate on that.
Thank you. I think having a dream is just a really powerful part of being human and having the ability to live out that dream. And there's one very beautiful man, his name is Michael Beckwith, and he says, we don't suffer from ADHD, we suffer from IDHD, intention deficit disorder. And we don't spend enough time really intentioning what it is that we want in life. And especially in this day and age, the phone is taking our attention all the time and so on. And possibly just a little tip. I've had my phone on silent for 4 years. My phone doesn't ring. It's with me. So if a call comes in, it will vibrate and I will see it. But it's not constantly grabbing my attention. I choose to look at it. I choose to engage with it when I want to. And so really just, and I intend my life. I really dream where it is that I want to go and what I want to do and the impact that I would love to have with people on the planet. And that's really, one of the ways in which I live and I go about my day and my life. And I think, just to share that for everyone is just to keep dreaming your life and imagining and intending what it is and how it is that you want to be.
Absolutely love that. When you mentioned Mr. Beckwith, I think my brain immediately went to The Secret, the book, because I think is featured in that.
Yes.
So it sort of took me back to that. And the issue of the phone, for a few years, I was using a tone as my alarm in the morning. It will go like, drrr. And recently I changed it into something more soothing. And now I found that when I wake up, I feel different. I'm like, wow. Such a small change. Just by changing the tone of your alarm, it sets the, excuse the pun, tone for the rest of the day. I'm like, gee, there's something there. So as we were talking, I was thinking about that. But again, Samantha Lee Skyring, really cool surname. It's really been a pleasure to listen to your perspective. And I do wish you and the Oryx Desert Salt business all of the very best. It was really great talking to you. You've seasoned, couldn't resist that temptation, but you've really infused us with great wisdom. Thank you.
1,000 African Voices.
You've been listening to 1,000 African Voices. Please join us next time as we bring you another African voice. 1,000 African Voices is produced by me, Aburengwi, with Sam Garnich on sound production. For more information, including the contact details of our guests, visit us on our website, 1000africanvoices.com. You can also subscribe to our show on iTunes by searching for 1000 African Voices. Please help us grow the project by logging on to 1000africanvoices.com to subscribe. Until next time, Kungana Africa, and take care.